So, welcome to a very odd stream, a very strange stream this evening. It's not planned, right? It's not planned, and it's mostly to put ourselves to work in a very public forum, right? Mostly to try and put our money where our collective mouths are as best as they possibly can. So this is our kind of anti body language review, right? Because I'm going to bring some people onto the screen shortly that I've been working with for the last year, some of them longer. But at the very least, this has been a lot of fun and a lot of work. And I think it's about time that you all got a look in at some of the conversations that we have. A note about how we do this. I'm not going to tell you who any of them are, mostly because that's not what you should be judging this material on. So if it is that you are here to have your biases kind of warmed to and have them I'm there we go. We're glitching a little bit there. We're glitching. Oh, come on back. There we go. It's coming back a little bit. We knew we'd enter into some kind of problem somewhere, but that's the joy of the technical snafu, right? Anyway, if you're tuning in to listen to somebody say something mean about someone you like or someone you don't like, so you can feel better, it's the wrong video. Move on. If you're joining in to see somebody, so I am from some secret sect of this corporation who does this and tells you a bunch of bullshit about their CV, move on, right? This isn't the video for you. We're here to look at applying what can actually be seen in a lot of these reviews and actually be analysed in a lot of these things and how they go down, in order to communicate that experience out towards everyone else. Because the main view of these types of things as they exist is that we can see this and know something about someone, being very specific about our words, right? You could look at me and believe that you know that I am fully dressed, which is fair. I'm not. I am. I'm only kidding. I am fully dressed, and that's the nature of the bias that we work with in this particular forum. So I actively chose a topic that annoys people, that actively incites bias, that actively nudges people into not listening to anyone else if it doesn't confirm or deny whatever stuff is going on in your head. If it's just a different point of view, it seems to be the main topic that makes pretty much everyone switch off, right? So we're going to stick to the stuff that can be observed and the information that we can reap from it as a result. Okay? So with that in mind, this is the team. We've lost one of them already, so I think I can plug someone else in now. Can I do that? Can I do that live? That's the question. Yeah, there I can. Awesome. So these are just some of the people, right? The rest of the people can't be recorded. And some of the people we haven't heard from, so they may be off doing things. It could be anything from a patrol of sorts to be stuck in a drive-through at Wendy's. We've not heard from them, right? We don't know at that particular stage, so we don't want that information alone to paint this in a different light, right? For as far as you should care, the listeners, the viewers, whatever it is, for as far as you should care, we are just 6 interested parties in the observation of non-verbal communication and what can be gleaned from it as a result. I'm going to put that comment on screen because there'll be a few of you people that know him. Dave, Mr. Levine, Mr. Dave Levine. Hi guys. He's joining us live. Incidentally, for those that are watching live, if you have any questions, stick them in whatever chat you're in and we'll put them on the screen. and we'll let these guys answer them. This should be an easy day at the office for me. This isn't about me at the minute. So you're going to be hearing a lot from these people over this side. They will do most of the talking. And to cover our global audience, Saeed will be doing it all in Turkish, and the other guy will be doing it all in French. Just so we can cover it. One of the other people is going to be doing it in Spanish. One of the other people is going to be doing it in Gaelic, and the other person is going to be doing it in Japanese. You know you are. You know you are. Right? So, how it's going to run with the videos, I didn't even scroll through. I had keywords that I put in. I put in Harris-Trump debate highlights, picked one of the top videos. I'm obviously not going to pick a video that's an hour and a half long, because the stream itself will end up being about a week long. So I picked a short video. So we should already be inferring from this that whatever we watch has, by default, context missing. It has context missing from that one. I did Trump highlights from 2024, picked a video, and I did Harris highlights from 2024, picked a video. Right? I figured, maybe a little naively, but I figured that would be the fairest way of going about it. Right? So to that end, my fellow compatriots, my fellow globe dwellers, we are globists here. Not to offend anyone too early. Oh, that was just an open laugh in your face. God bless you. Okay, so I'm going to let the first video load. And as we have already had a slight technical snafu for my guys here, if anything goes awry with the sound highlights of it, or air, or anything like that, don't be quiet. Just tell us, right? Just tell us. Oop. There were some small technical difficulties at this stage, so as the videos weren't playing, I sent each of them into their own respective YouTube channels to do the keyword searches themselves, watch a bit, and then come back to us. All right, have we all seen a short bit of it? Yeah? Cool. Okay. So, come back to us then. Those first few seconds, we got the introduction. Let's have a good debate. Trump has done this. Kamala's done this. What have you seen? What have you noticed so far? It's the initial stages of the context. What of the opening? What of the handshake? What information are we gleaning from this? Is there anything to be said in her introduction? Is there anything to be said in one person saying, let's have a good debate, and the other person saying, let's have fun? Is there any information there? Or is it just par for the course of an attempt at a pleasant conversation between two people who openly don't like one another? What do we think? Don't stand on ceremony. Ian's in first. Let's do it. He is. Nice, 100%, right? So we might connect to that towards the impact markers of territorial behavior when we look at somebody being comfortable with the invasion of their territory, or somebody being comfortable with invading somebody else's territory. It certainly speaks to the inflections around war games and war maneuvers, right? But is that to say that there is anything other than energy levels and excitement from one and a lack of inertia from another, and nothing more from that? For you guys, I've no idea who put their hands up first. So there's you guys. This day, I'm being very particular not to say anyone's name, or if it is, it'll be a false name. So one of you people start talking. Come on. Uh-huh. Yeah, so tactics are out on the open from the get-go, which could be expected, right, given that it's a debate. There'll be tactics afoot. Of course there will, right? That doesn't mean for, anybody scrolling through this that there's automatically some kind of subterfuge undergo. It is just in the early stages a release of energy that's connected to a thought pattern, to an obvious highlight moment of the introduction. Is the first time these people have actually met before after all of the insults were slung one way or the other. So it's going to be an awkward moment, right? And everyone was kind of keen and anxious to see how that would go. Nice. Next person.
She will not be as Trump like to take space and invade people, and maybe she's trying to send him a message that by doing that she will not be impressed by his tactics, and the maybe later on trying to take more space than she will be normally asked to do.
Nice, mate, nice. What we have is a nature towards this, right? The framing effect. The framing effect is technicality of it is we often draw different conclusions from the same information depending on how it is presented, right? And how it is presented is directly filtered through whatever bias we have, right? So if we can address whatever bias we have, there is more of a possibility. Right? If you look at the neuroscience, you can't turn them off, but there's more of a possibility afoot that you can connect to the information for precisely what it is rather than what some part of you interpret it to be. And as you rightly state, Trump is known for that kind of handshake, come here, like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. Get over here. That actually inadvertently sounded pretty good. I quite like it. Didn't mean to do it. Never tried it once in my life. It came out pretty good for the first time. So that may have been, we could, just from the different conclusions from the same information, it could have been standoffish nature towards Kamala, which given his notable ego, I doubt it. I doubt it. Could be more of a snare to be trapped in, like we see with some spiders in the animal kingdom. You come into my den. You come to me if you want a handshake. I'm not coming to you. That's a different interpretation of the same information. We need to see how the rest pans out in order to know one way or the other. Nice. One of you gents go next. And I've just remembered that I set up the camera feed. In amongst all these tech issues, I've been stumbling. I'm having an emotional quality that's antagonistic to clear reasoning moment.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and jump in while you try to sort that out. Well, one of the things as well is that I'm woefully uneducated as to the precise nature of either of these two. But from what I've heard, it sounds like Donald Trump has read The Art of War, which is something that I know of quite well. And in there, it does say that it's better for you to essentially lure other people to advance rather than to advance yourself into their territory. While it's not strictly speaking definitive that that's what he's trying to accomplish here, there's a distinct possibility of that. Furthermore, on the other side of things, Kamala's opening speech is very reminiscent of the standardized structure for opening remarks in law, which indicates that there's a possibility that she either has experience with the law or she has somebody who is helping write the scripts that is experienced in legal proceedings and the like, possibly an ex-lawyer, something along those lines. Again, I don't know particularly a whole lot about.
Yes. Thank you, mate. Next.
So I don't know anything about these people, but I heard some negative things about Trump. So I might have some biases against them. In the first seconds, he's like, okay, I will go and we will have a debate. He directly goes to the microphone. But Kamala is more like, okay, let's first have a handshake, let's build some friendship, and then we will have a debate. But then she says, let's have a good debate, and Trump says, let's have some fun. So maybe he tries some tactic here, like, we will just have fun. It's not a big deal. I can handle that. And when he has a handshake, he leans to Kamala, and Kamala goes back. So maybe it's his type of handshake, or maybe he's aggressive. I can't say anything because we don't have enough information right now. But yeah, that's all.
Love it. Love it. There's two things that pop out here for me from the world of cognitive biases. Hyperbolic discounting and the halo effect. Hyperbolic discounting is the preference for immediate payoffs over delayed payoffs, like I could give you $1,000 in 12 months, or I could give you $1,100 next month. Which are you going to pick? Right? The notion of the immediacy pays off in that particular circumstance. So when it connects towards biases, this initial skewering of what we said in terms of the framing effect can connect to a want to perceive actions in accordance with your belief structure around either person, right? Around either person. And again, this then follows through into the halo effect. It occurs, I've got the technical definition, it occurs when a single initial aspect of a person or thing determines or outshines how we see the full picture. So there might be people who are coming to this debate for the first time seeing Donald Trump. Everyone knows Donald Trump. He was the president before. And there's Kamala Harris, a VP from a struggling industry, essentially. Right? And with that halo effect in place, forget everything else. Which I've spoke to many people about it. Many people have done. Many people have done, right? So how about this? Go for another 30 seconds or so of the clip. See how it changes. Maybe skip it to about 2 minutes in and see what you've noticed in the changes from there. And we'll all do the same.
I have been a leader on IVF. Will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month? Fine. Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask me that question?
Answer the question, would you
Because under Roe v.
answer
Wade,
the question, which you need to? And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch.
All right, and then come back to us when you've watched that particular... I'm starting to sound like a hypnotist. Just come back to me, and you're back in the room. You're back in the room. Just after you've watched a little bit more, tell us about the bit that you watched, so I know what part to edit into this after the fact. We actually have a sponsor for the shows now, which is nice. Just as a side note, I feel like I'm vamping. Like I'm just in the middle of the industry vamping. Somebody talk. Somebody come back to us. It's been about a minute now. Come on, we're keeping the pressure on.
Well, I was looking around the clip around at 17 seconds
Okay.
at the start, and I find it really interesting when Kamala is speaking that she's using a hand gesture like she was writing her speech. Like she's been rehearsing like a lot. Probably I didn't saw the debate, but I will not guess because you're gonna kill me. When news that it was at the start of the debate because she seems to be like the start where she puts her pounds in play to see where the debate will go. But the way that she used her hand to mimic the way she wrote it, I find it really interesting. That probably is the way to release a little bit of thermodynamics, trying to give her the speed, the calmness, the security that she need to go through that, because it's probably a bias from my part, but I know that Donald Trump is pretty hard to debate with. It seems to, at least. So I think she's trying to remember what she had said, wrote for that kind of part.
Nice. That's a key connection towards tension release, right? Most people who commented on Kamala and the lead up was going, "Have you heard her laugh? It's such a weird laugh. It's such a weird laugh." Like, it's a laugh, right? Who cares? Is anyone thinking about why she's laughing? Right, rather than how it sounds or whatever, thinking about what the laugh is doing for her. As it's these moments to calm oneself, to keep a sense of calm. Really, I was searching for a better word, but that's really what it is. It's a sense of calm. It's a tension release. We have our own verbiage here that you might pick up on for you guys listening that you might not. Thermodynamic release of energy is that connection towards holding on to something that's built up an anxiety of some sorts and letting it out secretively in some way, which can come through what a lot of body language analysts call illustrators, kind of emblems, these types of things. It can come through the precise nature of whatever it is that we're doing in that moment to hide it. It illustrates how connected we are to that moment, right? So we know, even though she's in it, well, rather we infer that even though she's in her head, thinking about the plan, thinking about what she's saying, she's in the room. There is a presence, a connection towards a cognizant-like behavior. Nice. Who's next? Casey.
I'll jump in. So I watched about the same area that was just spoken about, as well as I fast forwarded to about 2 minutes when they were talking about Israel. And so that kind of worked out well because I saw Kamala speaking on Trump's policies as well as Trump speaking on some beliefs that Kamala may or may not have, depending on whether what he said is true or not. But the point was that I saw both of them in a reactionary phase to what the other was saying. And some commonalities came up with both their reactions. And they were both trying to keep straight faces for obvious reasons. But you could clearly see the amount of disagreement they had towards what the other was saying coming through. And I found it interesting when Trump was accusing Kamala of hating Israel, she was looking at him and squinting. I thought that just stood out to me as one of the reactions. But
Casey, knock it off.
Also, you could just see the energy levels, like internally with them, about how much they're having to control themselves from jumping in on top of what the other one is saying.
Gotcha. Nice. So lots of control, right? Lots of control. you know, we could argue the point for even more cognitive biases, hedonic adaptation. Right? In our quest for pleasure, we have a tendency to pursue one pleasure after another, after another, after another, right? So in terms of the way the discussions go down, are they looking to solve certain areas and actually answer certain questions that annoy either person, or are they trying desperately to focus on the listeners to solve their pleasures one after the other, after the other, after the other, right? We're building up a nice little chunk of cognitive biases coming in after this. My friend, go for it.
So the most outstanding part for me was they both have different reactions towards criticism. Like when Harris criticized Trump, he's like, he tries to hold his face and just shake his hands, like he rejects it. But when Trump criticized Harris, she starts to laugh, she starts to make fun of it like it's not true. So I would question why they choose different reactions.
Nice. This is great. This is great work, right? So already what we're seeing from an analysis like this is it builds out to more of a game theory standpoint, right? And I'm by no means a game theorist, nor are any of us here, right? It's the action of human economics more so than mathematical or financial economics. It is more so than just a singular topic. You have to consider the ebbs and flow of so much more than what someone's elbow did, right? Please.
I'm going to jump on to, I skipped about a 2-minute mark. And there's a sort of like almost a stark contrast between the first clip and that clip. I think it was mentioned before, energy-wise. And first clip, there was more emotional, there was more higher brainwave states. But in the sort of 2-minute mark, whether it was actually 2 minutes or longer, depends on how it's been cut together, it lowered a bit. Energy level had lowered a bit, which I'd sort of reason that brainwave states are starting to lower a bit. So there's more of a chance at this stage of there being answers that are thought about instead of knee-jerk reactions. So it might go back up, depending, you know, it all depends. But the difference between the two clips, it's just a natural flow of these things. You know, they're going to have the highs, they're going to have the lows. It doesn't necessarily mean
100%, mate. 100%. Like, let's not forget from this particular context, this is a best bits from a very long debate. So that's one context that very often gets ignored, right? So we get a connection towards the contrast effect. The contrast effect, when we compare something to something else, the contrast effect enhances the differences between them and distorts our perception of what is. Right, so this very debate itself is a comparison between Trump and Harris. Is that the best way to decide one's intent or the one's information that can be observed? Should we be thinking about it as two separate analyses that have interactional points for sure? But is that the better way to think about it? And as Ian's rightly stating, there are additional contexts to consider. Nice. Who's next? Go on, mate.
All right. I just continued on from the from where we left off previously in Eclipse. And I noticed that this is relatively early on in the debates. It's still that kind of confronting and maneuvering pot shot phase of the debate where they are trying to feel out where the focus of the debate's going to specifically be and what they need to specifically address. You know, they have all of their arguments ready. They have an idea as to what things might come up and what their responses are going to be. And at this stage, they're just feeling out for each other.
Keep going, mate. Keep going. You good?
Okay. so they're trying to feel out for each other what it is that the debate's going to be. And I find it interesting that she has a long string of insinuations about how terrible things were under his rule, some of which could be attributed to him, and some of which don't really make a whole lot of sense to attribute to him in particular on the face of it, at the very least. She mentions the horrible pandemic that happened under his watch, as though he had some say in that occurring. She didn't really specify what specifically within that we were supposed to associate with him negatively. And then she goes on to insult his rallies, which I don't see the point of that in terms of how well one does at the job of presidency. And he jumps right on that and starts insulting her rallies right back, rather than addressing the fact that it's really immaterial to the entire argument. So yeah, that's about as far as I got.
And I believe around the world, between men of a social nature, it's called dick measuring. Right? Is that a place for it in that particular context? Is it a tactic? That's certainly what was inferred, one way or the other, to get him off his game and get him focusing on one thing. But that is an interpretation that we have. The unfortunate part of this is that if the analysis isn't being done in real time, we get this, the hindsight bias. When we look at past events, everything seems clear and inevitable. Like, oh, I knew it all along, right? If you've ever been watching a murder mystery of some sorts and then the killer's revealed, you go, I knew it! Did you? When do you say anything then? When you do anything then? Right? It's a bias that exists in our head to lull us into a sense of security with our readings, our findings, that doesn't actually exist in the moment. Right? And that's the key. So when we're looking back at this, and to be fair, Trump did go on a bit of a tirade about how maybe tirade's too excessive a word, but a bit of a soliloquy about how wonderful his rallies are and how shit hers are. Maybe that was the tactic, to seem like name calling and bring him into that field. Right? So what are we seeing? What are we seeing as an overall analysis? If you were going to function anything to part of a profile, that let's just take a straw poll before I finish off this question. How many people actually watched the debate in full? In full. Good. Right? Good. Which no one on YouTube will ever tell you. Right? They won't. No one. So, if you were going to formulate certain elements into part of a profile, like as in when Trump does this because we've seen it go on so often, it very likely means XYZ. When Harris does this as a comeback, you see this kind of move, you very often see it in these times, which will likely mean XYZ. Do we have any kind of analyses that you can bring into this moment, even though if I were to be, overly cautious, you've maybe watched 2 minutes in total of broken footage. Right? So, hit me with it. Have you got any profiles that you can use at this particular moment? Any observations that we could build into a profile that can be used at this moment? My friend in the back, yes.
I watched it through the 3-minute clips that you sent. And all the way along, I was asking myself, who put those clips together? Because if they are biased in their vision to the debate, if they had an idea that it should be Trump that should win or Kamala Harris that should win, it will in fact affect the montage. It will affect the way the person wanted us to perceive how the debate goes. So a lot of time during the debate, at the short clip that you show us, we see that Kamala Harris looks often to Donald Trump, when she makes a try to hit some points, target points, or when he makes a remark, she look at him, kind of discuss face sometimes. But then the different part is that Trump never looks at Kamala Harris. Why? Probably because he wants to make way that he's a strong guy and is not impressed, is way over his game, he's heard it a million times, so he don't care. I don't know what was going on there, but I find it interesting that we see that Kamala Harris look often. So it came in mind that the person that put the clips together, she wanted to make Kamala Harris look a little bit weaker or less strong in the position, because she always often look at him like, what the hell? So make her look like a bit more struggling. Could be, it stuck out to me like that.
I like it. One of you guys can speak. I don't know if you want to fight it out to the death first. We can get a different show people how we run things in this group. You know, it's fine. Weapons don't come until later, essentially.
Well, speaking of fighting in warfare, I'm going to bring it back to the art of war, which talks about how when the enemy stays aloof and seeks to provoke, they're desperate for the attack. And I think we can see that in Donald Trump's behavior here in terms of him attempting to keep this very aloof position where he's leaning away from her. He has this particular facial expression that and then he, you know, takes these little pot shots at her. And so I think the game he's trying to play here is looking like he's very composed and very, like he didn't really do much. And then trying to provoke this really big reaction out of her to make her look like she's not in control of the situation, while he himself is maintaining control. And I think that's the game he's playing here. I'm not super familiar with watching any of the debate that he's involved in, so I don't know if this is a recurring tactic that he employs, but that's at least seems to be what he...
Gotcha. And just before you go, mate, one of the things I want to highlight is the kind of duality for you guys listening or consuming this or similar kinds of content, and for us here, the DK effect, Dunning-Kruger effect. The less we know about something, the more confident we are. The more knowledge we have about something, the less confident we are. We're walking lines about things because between us, I think we've got about 800,000 years experience or something along those lines in this world, this information, this way of looking at things. But when it comes to what happens behind closed doors with the kind of tactics that they wrote and the conversations that are going on off camera and all of this type of stuff that's happening, we as the ignorant public don't know, very carefully chosen word, we don't know anything. All right? Go for it, mate.
Well, that actually rounds out to something I was going to highlight is we talked about tactics. We talked about tactics and when Trump was talking about like the varying rallies and whatnot, was that a tactic to gain support for one or the other? I mean, they're very public figures, and this is a very intellectually charged situation in a very public setting. So they're going to act in certain ways to try and get people to support their party, their side, each other, themselves as individuals. And I think from that, we can build out a certain public profile. But just like you said, we don't know if that would reflect on their personal profile of when they're not in front of a camera. I mean, obviously, it would have some overlap to how they might run a presidency or run things for the country in terms of their public profiles. But just like you said, we can't apply it all to them as individuals either.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. we and certainly in light of the results, we had similar things in the UK. Like everyone's cheering that Labour got in, but is that really a Labour win or a Tory loss? Right? So this is the kind of thing that we can take away from the debate. Regardless of who you think won or lost, is it a win or is it just the other side was rubbish? Right? That's the kind of profilable entity that speaks to another cognitive bias for the way we consume this kind of information. It's known as the loss aversion. We feel the pain of losing something more strongly than the pleasure of gaining something of equal value. Right? Who was more, who was more happy about Labour getting in than the Labour voters initially? Because I'll be honest, not that I would want anyone to disclose what or who they voted for. I voted for Labour, and right now I'm like, pissed that vote right up the wall, didn't I? That was a foolish thing, but I did it because I believed in the discussions at the start, but really, I'm believing in a Tory failure rather than a Labour success. Right? So, how about the rest of you guys? Any profilable tactics that we can watch out for moving forwards in this discussion? Obviously, there'll be no more debates. He's won. Right? What do we think? How about this then? Right? We'll move on. Go to your YouTube pages and put in a Kamala Harris best bits or best moments or best something 2024. And find those. Find one from there and we'll look at it. I'll tell you about a couple of things I've been thinking about with the nature of this when it comes to cognitive biases. The outcome bias. And just I used these cards in the last one, which is why I've kind of brought it back again. These are the cognitive bias flashcards that are from, where are they from? Escaping Ordinary. They're great cards. But I use them specifically so I can show you. That's all. It's got the information on that you can get from textbooks and whatnot, but being a sleight of hand guy, I like things to fiddle with. The outcome bias. When a decision is judged by its eventual outcome instead of by the quality of the decision-making process involved. Right? So you look at the supporters. And this is only from the things that I've seen on the news. So there is the highlighted filter that comes through in the first place anyway. But it essentially boiled down to, I like Trump because he's a straight talker, or I like Kamala because she's not Trump. Right? There was sure as shit a lot of grey area to that. And a lot of individual things that will be about, you can't discount that. But in terms of the large amount of voices that we got to hear on the TV over here and online, that's pretty much what it boiled down to. I had a conversation with a one and only MAGA person I've ever spoken to. So take that with a pinch of salt necessary, like a wheelbarrow full, maybe. And he said that he was such a he used much more colourful language, but he's a massive fan of Trump because he's a straight shooter and tells it like it is. I went, oh, you're a dick. That was pretty straight shooting. Did we achieve anything? No. Right? And that's the nature of this argument. If he went into talking about the decision-making process to arrive at why he does like Trump, we could have a more insightful conversation. we could better understand one another. But when you're judging somebody on the outcome of what Trump is, or what Harris is, or anyone else in that situation, if you're judging them on the outcome rather than the decision-making process involved, the little steps involved, it's a cognitive bias you've stepped into. So, guys, some Harris best bits. Talk to me about what you've seen, and then, I mean, what you've seen video-wise, and then what you've seen in the video. I thought you were just, oh God, I can't watch any more of these videos. My eyes and ears are going to bleed. I don't have a tumbleweed.
I'll go then.
Thank you, mate. Thank you, mate.
I will go.
Go for it.
I watched the Delaware Constitution speech after 2024 U.S. election defeat. The first one that popped up. I went with this one.
Perfect.
And I find it interesting because I fast forwarded to have the time to watch it, and she does again that writing gesture that she did in the debate. So it was probably not fake back then. This probably just a normal gesture for her to the way she speak, the way she impersonate the message that she had to do. So I find it interesting to see those patterns come back. And we see in that Constitution speech a very different dynamic. Her shoulders were more round. She's not straight as she was in the debate. She moves slower than during the debate, and she has those kind of smile that is not a smile. She's like kind of a sad smile, even though she's trying to prove that she's in front of there and we did a good job and I'm proud of what we did, and those kind of messages. But we see that when she smiles and talks about people that vote for her, you have a sadness in this smile that clashes a little bit with what she's trying to say. So we can see a mismatch between what she's saying and what she's what her body language is saying. Nice. I find it interesting.
Nice. I mean, it's a great catch. Maybe that's something that you know the general public picked up on. Not necessarily an inauthenticity, but just a disconnect. You know, something that wasn't quite right. Whereas somebody speaking big and loud and proud, you know, and very actionable and animated, is that more engaging than listening to what somebody says? Right? Maybe that's what something was picked up on. It's a great shout. What about the rest of you yahoos? I'm just kidding. I love you, really.
I'll jump in because I watched the same one.
Go for it, mate.
So I watched more towards the beginning, but I also picked up on that disconnect with the sadness and trying to project like a hopeful image. And what stood out to me is I'm gonna use the brainwave terms again. The her brainwave state seemed lower in this than it did in the debate. And I mean, that could be because she's prepared this speech and the debate is more reactionary and there's only so much you can prepare for in that. And also it could be because of the level of sadness that she has in there with this concession. But it's interesting because her facial expressions change when she goes from addressing the crowd to thanking other people who have supported her in this campaign, like specific people, like the president and her husband and everything. Her energy rises just a little bit, and her thermos become more open, sort of, when she's addressing specific people, and then it's more like a determined, kind of projecting hope kind of thing when she's talking to the crowd. But that disconnect that you mentioned stood out to me too.
Gotcha. So, in essence, what we're reading from this is a previous experience career-wise, right? Certainly the high-pressure nature of, I don't know the legal position that she held, but she held probably several of them. I know she was a very successful legal something. What that was, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but that comes with the navigation of those types of things and speaking to people in the way that they need to be spoken to, rather than just this one-size-fits-all approach towards everyone. Because you could argue that people that hold the judging positions, pun it kind of intended, if it is that you aren't open in that way, you risk imbuing the particular circumstance or the cases with your own set of biases in terms of how you believe it should go. Yeah, so it's a great catch from both of you. Nice. Anyone else? I found 6 more biases that pop up. Go for it. A Japanese friend.
Yeah. So the
you don't have
clip
to
that I watched.
Go for it.
Yeah, I need to learn a little bit more Japanese before I go on the internet trying to spew my konnichiwa nonsense. Okay, so the clip that I saw was cut up into bits, so I'm not entirely sure if the presentation of the bits were in sensible order. But the way that it was set up, Donald Trump was accusing her plan of being only about 4 sentences long, copying Joe Biden's plan and not really having one. Then it cut immediately to her explaining what her plan actually is. Some of it sounded a little bit buzzwordy. Some of it sounded like it was more or less substantial from an uneducated perspective. That at least that's what it seemed like to me. And then she lobbed a counterattack against his policy decisions and plans, which is a little bit more of what I would expect a proper political debate to kind of look like, actually at least discussing policy decisions and what they're going to be doing with the country rather than how popular they are at the rallies. And this definitely took on the appearance of her win in this little encounter, because he was trying to provoke her and make it look like she didn't know what she was talking about. And if his attack had worked, she would have fumbled around it that bit, in terms of stuttering around with what her plan actually is and becoming self-conscious about how effective her plan actually is. But she didn't. She stood her ground on that point, and then lobbed a counterattack as to what his plan is looking like. So it didn't have his intended effect, or at least it didn't seem like it was what he was intending.
Yeah. I mean, the downside of all political movements, regardless of the country. No, that's not fair. The actual dictatorships, rather. That was too many T's. The actual dictatorships. And the areas with the wars going on would be the exclusions, but there is a popularity contest involved, and should it be, right? Should it be strictly a popularity contest, or should somebody be popular for? I mean, that's another bias that we can put in. It's the swimmer's body illusion. When we confuse selection factors with the results. Does he have a good body because he's a swimmer, or is he a swimmer that therefore created the good body? Right? Is somebody popular because they are a good politician or whatever they do, or and they talk about the things that the general public want, or are they popular because they're a character? A good example would be OnlyFans models. They're very popular, but if it is that you're looking for somebody to be in a single marriage with, it's maybe not the best choice. And I have no moral outcry if you want to do OnlyFans. I don't care. But if somebody wants to get married and have that monogamous life, OnlyFans isn't going to be the best pool, the dating pool to pull from, but they are very popular individuals, right? So it all depends on that kind of selection criteria that's forgotten. Okay, what about the rest of you guys? Go on, mate.
Yeah, rightly or wrongly, I found my way onto a concession video. That's just
Nice.
and I think it was quite telling because it's easier to get a measure of somebody when they've lost. You know, people can say that when they're on the winning side, it's easy to say the right things. But I think you get a true sort of test of character when you speak to someone when they they're on the losing side. From what I've seen, I mean, I've got one ear listening to people in there, and I was watching this, but
Nice.
you seem to say the right things. You know, there was no more personal attacks. That's just seems to be par for the course on the run up. You know, she was very. I mean, I went biases again. I've only seen one video of that. I no doubt there's numerous, but from what I've seen, yeah, she seems to be partly genuine. But like I said, I'm aware that I've only seen this, and I've only had half an ear on it. So
totally, mate. Totally. Like, is it possible to be, you know, kind of noble in defeat and be gutted that you lost at the same time? Totally. Totally it is. We see it.
Yeah, she truly looks gutted.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
she, at the same time, you know, her voice does break on occasion. Well, not break, but it's sort of,
Yeah.
you can tell there's emotion there. But yeah, it seems genuine.
Nice. Right, and so this is where we step into the nature of the comparison effect again. Trump lost last time, it was fraud, blah, 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 right? And compare the two in order to achieve some kind of unifying unilateral hypothesis when it is two separate, completely different circumstances. Although as a side effect, I kind of find it an odd observation that re-electing Trump now makes him older than when Biden got elected last time. Just a thought. What about the rest of you guys and your Harris viewing? If you have nothing else, I can go into my tirade of the biases that I found. And y'all can talk to me about these observations that I have made from again the same videos, and obviously I've seen a lot more pop up on reels and shorts because it's everywhere. All right, so the fact that I've got a good memory means it's in there. So if you guys have ever scrolled through any YouTube short or Instagram reels, whatever, means you will have seen it too. I know with the word slipped out. I've been hanging around with Americans too long. Right? We've got a little side chat going on and I'm getting razzed because a y'all slipped out, excuse me. So, that's another Freudian slip again about how tired I am. You know, I said I found a few more. I found 9 now. And the reason I am bias hunting and you guys are non-verbal communication viewing, my kind of factor will become clear at the end. You guys already know what I'm doing anyway, but for everyone else that's viewing, there is a particular reason, right? The bandwagon effect. When we believe or do something because many people also believe and do that same thing. Right? Are you telling me that a Republican or a Democrat household didn't influence the rest of the viewing by virtue of it just being a Republican or a Democrat household? Right? My son was old enough to vote for the first time this time, and he took it as a great piece of personal pride because he's going through a lot of personal things himself, and he wanted to make his voice known. But he goes, "Dad, who should I vote for?" I'm like, no. I wear a lot of hats in my role. I'm not wearing that one. I'm not wearing that one. This dude is all on you, right? I'm going to tell you who I'm going to vote for, but you vote for whoever the hell you want. You vote for whoever you want to get in based on whatever it is that they're talking about. And my reasoning, based on only the conversations I've had socially, which is in the UK. So I'm specifically speaking about the UK election here. I don't know how well that travels overseas. Maybe for our overseas friends, you guys can comment on this too. But those kinds of conversations don't very often happen in households. It's usually, we are a blue household, we are a red household, we are a green household if you vote for whatever. Right? There's never a forum where those kinds of discussions become okay or accepted. Right? So there is a lot of the bandwagon effect that goes on. What have been your guys' experience of that? Not necessarily just the family one, but, you know, all the lads down at the football club will vote reform because Nigel Farage is in pubs a lot, drinking pints and watching football. Okay. If that's what you want in a politician, crack on. Right? Any experience of this bandwagon effect? Go for it, dude.
All right, well, I will just say that well, there's a few different dimensions that I can tackle this from. The first one is that I've got a little bit of mild autism, I think plays a role in it. But for whatever reason, my entire life, I've just not really cared about social pressures, which was much to the chagrin of my teachers, because I also didn't care that they were telling me something from a position of authority if they didn't have a good reason for it. If they couldn't explain to me why whatever it was that they wanted me to do made sense, and I didn't agree with it, I just didn't do it. And that also gave them a little bit of comfort, though, because they knew that unless it was my idea, which it wasn't ever going to be, I was never going to do drugs or anything along those lines, because I just couldn't care less what my peers thought of what it was that I was doing. And so I've been relatively immune to the actual social pressure on my behavior. I've learned to shut up when it comes to specific discussions that aren't going to be very productive. So if I disagree with someone about their political decisions, which I almost always do because I have my own opinions on things and I don't fit cleanly into either camp, really. And also could honestly care less. I'm much more interested in researching 16th century samurai than I am in current events. I know I should care, but I can't bring myself to care that much about the little song and dance. And so, you know, I try to set that aside for the analysis here, but I'm rather dispassionate about the entire affair. And so I usually just keep my mouth shut when it comes to the political discussions in my household. My household does tend towards the more red side of the distribution on that side of things. And I don't mind that they have their opinions on that. It does not bother me one way or another. I don't see it as something that I would have a whole lot of chance of influencing if I did have a strong one way or another slants towards things. But, you know, I'll hear out either side of the political aisle on their opinions. And I try to make a little bit of time for trying to inform myself on the things that are happening. But I'm working from the historical perspective and then trying to move towards the present, rather than starting from the present moment and then working my way backwards. And I feel like even though it's not directly paying off as much for the immediate political decisions that I have to make, in the long run, I still hold the position that that's going to be the more effective approach for being an informed citizen, to know the backstory and the lead up to all of these situations and the positions that we're holding, and being able to see the patterns that are playing out throughout history, rather than being focused on just the one thing that we're focused on right now collectively. So yeah, that's about where I'm at with the position of the whole thing.
Nice. And this autism, I don't believe a group like this will have ever heard like that about that. I don't believe we would be familiar. You're in good company. All right. You're in good company. Go on, guys. Why don't you go next?
I'll go.
Go for it.
I'm gonna go on a more like general social aspect of where I am and located in the world. You know, I'm not gonna say where I live, but
Just out here dropping her address all of a sudden. Go for it.
I mean, I think you can tell by my accent I'm American, but that's as far as I'm gonna go. But where I am specifically in America, there are kind of two types of people. There are the ones that are very loud about their political beliefs and want to insert it into every conversation. And then there are the ones that heavily want to avoid it to keep the peace. And I think that's because the sides are so distant right now. The values and beliefs, I mean, where they used to be closer, it's very divided. And I mean, it's very divided among families, and it's very divided among work colleagues, very divided about by everyone right now, especially where I am located in the US. So people either really want to make their opinion known and talk about it a lot, and you just have a hard time getting out of those conversations. You don't want to be in them, or they avoid the topic entirely and change the subject entirely, and so it's interesting.
I thought, mate, 100%. I picked this one up as well because it's separate to the group that I found, just specifically in reference to the louder, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on, but the louder ones, a belief that we control events more than we actually do is the illusion of control. Okay, you are loud, right? I used to work in customer service years ago, so you're on the phones. And one of the warning things that I had from the managers was, you're going to get some people that are going to yell at you. You're going to get some people that are going to say some horrible things and shout. And I'm like, well, cool, just because they say it louder doesn't mean that they're right. You know, it's a volume thing. I have a mute button on my phone. If they want to yell, I can mute. I'll come back to them when they're done. Right? So there's the thing. Whoever wants to go next, go for it.
So in my country, people used to vote based on the smart people's choice. Like, let's say there's a famous smart person and he or she says that I will vote for this guy. And the rest of the people, most of the people says that, okay, this guy is smart and he or she will vote for it. So I will vote for it too.
Oh yeah. Got you. And like that's the thing, isn't it? As we've had a lot of philosophical discussions in between our actual meets, but like, and Anthony Mativier has a great video on this as well. What is smarts? What is intelligence? How do you quantify it? Like, I have that was a thing that cracked me up. She is a low IQ person. He is a low IQ person. Okay, what's your criteria for that? Who made you the arbiter of intelligence? Right? He connects back to that thing that I often hear about insults. But they said this about me. And? Are you? Like, he called me a dick. Are you? No. So what does it matter? Right? That's my own autistic flare shining through, didn't it? What about the rest of you guys? No, actually, we'll move on. We've got a lot of biases that I've found. So here's the next one. The Google effect. We don't commit new information to memory because we know the information is easily accessed online, which leads to poor memory recall and the tendency to forget new information. This pops up a lot when you hear about, well, Piers Morgan had a way of phrasing this. So he's just saying what the man on the street is thinking. Well, if the man on the street is me, more often than not, I'm thinking about what would it be like to be a Jedi? How many cookies could I eat in 1 minute? Could I take a small bear in a fight? These are the types of things I'm genuinely thinking, right? So this kind of Google effect is in motion when you connect towards people that speak about things that are in your head. And yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. People in the comments saying that I could take a small bear in a fight. It would be a cub, obviously. But we'll get into this. I'll get cancelled for attacking the children of bears soon. Even though, look at me, I am part bear. But here's the thing: when somebody says like some kind of opinion that you connect with, whatever it is, do you connect more to them, or the research that would go into formulating it, or the background work that would go into further finding other ways of making sure if it's a utilitarian opinion? I'm skipping over the hair comment, you. I'm skipping over that one. I've been out to lunch with my in-laws today, and there's been enough hair remarks. I'm skipping over it. I'm starting to feel more and more like Colin Mockery, and whose line is it anyway? But this is the nature. Yes, the Google effect is in line with those that Google opinions, and arguably flat Earth wouldn't be the thing that it is without the Google effect. And one of the ways that certainly we here in this group have analogized the scientific method of what's the easiest way to try and prove that something is, try and prove that it isn't. Right? There are nuances to that either way, but if we were to look at a sentence, that would be a way of describing it. The Google effect doesn't come into it, right? So I believe in my right to bear arms, not having the arms of bears. My right to bear arms. So you're gonna go and listen to people that are talking about that. I don't know the ins and outs, but certainly Roe v. Wade is a controversial one. Whatever side of your opinion is of that, you're gonna go and listen to people that talk about that. You're gonna go and listen to this person that talks about immigration. You're gonna go and listen to this person that talks about tariffs and the economy and whatever else it is around there. How many people are actually looking into the information that goes into the opposition of their own point of view, rather than just indulging in the Google effect? That's the thing that's at play. I'll get your guys' opinion on the next one. The clustering illusion. The human brain is always seeking patterns and rules in data, even when there are none. In the same way that somebody might see a rabbit in a cloud. It's a cloud. Or would see, a religious deity in some toast. That became the popular one for some time, right? There's conversations happening at the minute. Look at everything that's happened since Trump got in. Putin's talking about opening up conversations and having peace talks about the war. Is that Trump's doing? And I'm not alleging anything one way or the other. I'm simply exploring the other side of the opinion. Is that Trump's doing? Or is that relational? Is that for furthering something else? Is there something that's gone on conversation-wise with someone else in some part? Because let's be fair, even though Trump and Harris were running for the titled position, they are the face of a team. Right? The buck might stop with one person, but they're the face of a team. So as some conversation happens somewhere with someone else that somebody else doesn't know, and yet the ignorant public, of which we are all members, put together this piece about it being something to do with his awesomeness. Yes, sir. Man in the back. My autistic friend.
Okay, so there's a number of thoughts that come up that, so I'm going to try to speed through them really quickly. So the first one is that the clustering effect with observing the shape of the cloud and thinking that it looks like a bunny is also the basic principle behind how memory techniques work. So in some ways, that's both our greatest weakness and our greatest strength, as long as it's leveraged to the appropriate degree and the patterns that you see are taken with at least a small amount of suspicion as to whether or not those are actually the case. It also dovetails quite nicely with what you were saying earlier about the assumptions at your ability to control situations. And the projection of that is that the people in power that are the figureheads have more power than they actually do, have more influence than they actually do. And there's some level as well of almost magical thinking that comes into this as well, like that may even harken back to our kings of old who were believed to have divine powers over things, which is also the same basic structure that underlies conspiracy theories. The idea that the people who are in power have extreme amounts of control over the way the outcomes arise. If you believe that, and then you also observe that the situations that are happening seem to be unfolding rather negatively and chaotically, then the only way to maintain that belief is to then believe that your leaders don't have your best interest at heart and are actively conspiring against you, when in fact it's likely that they just don't have as much control as you would like to believe. And so that's where a lot of that comes into play as well, is these patterns that we observe are assuming that they come from the individual that's put in the position of power. It's also the case that the person who's at the head of the power structure has all of these keys to power that they need to appease in order to maintain their position of power as well. And so even those kings of old who grandiosely claimed that they were gods still had to appease their generals, still had to appease the treasury, still had to appease all of these keys to power in order to maintain their position so that they weren't ousted and had a different person put into that position who would serve their interests better. And the politics of today is no different. It's just that we've diffused those keys to power over the voting base and also over company interests and military interests and a whole wide array of interconnected networks, as opposed to the very few keys to power that are still very common in more straight up dictatorships. Nice. And so the people in power have a lot more influences than they actually would like to admit.
Nice. Well, here's the thing, right? I noticed now that we can go through the individual aspects of each cognitive bias that I found in the interim, but I want to get to the other side, right? And obviously, within these types of videos, everyone always focuses on Trump because he's Trump. But we're not interested in talking shit about someone just for the sake of talking shit about them. It doesn't do anything for us. If that was our focus here, our channel would be a lot bigger. Right? Our channel would be a lot bigger. It would be a lot more sexy viewing. So here's some of the others that I found. Survivorship bias. We tend to focus on things that survived the process and overlooked the ones that didn't. Just because he survived an assassination attempt, as heinous as that is, does that still make him the better candidate? Does it change the impression of him as a result, right? Base rate neglect, ignoring available statistical data in favor of specific examples. How many people with their opinions on whatever side of the political spectrum that they're on can cite individual moments, individual things? You know, I mean, it goes on all the time. There was a lot of conversations about on the street with the tariffs that are happening. But people pointing out, you do know that the consumer foots the bill for the tariffs, right? No. And then it gets explained, and then they go, oh dear. There's another one. Availability bias. We estimate the likelihood of something happening by the examples most readily available in our memory. Who hasn't done that? Right? I mean, like this. Will we see? I don't know. Biden step down because he hasn't been a working president for so long. Will we see him step down and Kamala take over until Trump gets in? Right? Will we see those kinds of changes? I don't know how the Constitution works along that. I'm just kind of posing questions of that area. But we neglect to bring forward all data simply because we don't train our minds to contain it. That is what we specialize in here. The Barnum effect, when we easily attribute our personalities to vague and generalized statements, even if they can apply to a wide range of people. That is another thing for the lack of want to review our own opinions further, right? Because it takes a refreshing degree of honesty, regardless of whatever your opinion is, to admit that you might be wrong. And status quo biases. We prefer things to stay the same. Any change from the baseline is perceived as a loss. I refer you to the 45th and the 47th. Now, to do our due diligence by the other team. YouTube, Trump or Donald Trump, best moments 2024. Give it 30 seconds. And then we'll see a lot of it. I will imagine there'd be a lot of them. I have 5 more biases. If you guys still need some viewing time, I've got 5 more. The authority bias is one. The tendency to trust and be influenced by the opinions of people who are considered to be an authority figure. This guy says it because he's my congressman. This guy says it because he's my prime minister. Therefore, it must be well thought through. This person has a bajillion followers. Therefore, the product that they're talking about must be great. This person's written a book. Therefore, some of the things he waffles on about must be well served. It's not always true. Look at Milli Vanilli. They were once thought to be incredible singers. They mime the whole time. Confirmation biases, the tendency to interpret new information so that it becomes compatible with our existing theories and beliefs. Look at Mr. Trump talking about using the military to attack the enemy within. His fans going, well, it was hyperbole, it was clearly a joke, it was this. The other side going, he's fucking nuts. Right? Where's the truth? Where's the data? Where's the information? On one side or the other. The Zeigarnik effect. Our minds quickly forget finished tasks. However, they are programmed to continually interrupt us with reminders of unfinished tasks. He has concepts of a plan. Way back in the early stages of 2020, he was talking about repealing Obamacare. Doing his own thing. Believe you guys are still waiting on that. Curse of knowledge. When we know something, we tend to assume that everyone else knows about that thing too. So if there are learned people on either side, they assume that everyone else knows what they've figured out because they're on my side. Another bias. Self-serving bias. We attribute our failures to external forces, but our successes are the result of our own internal actions. Was rigged last time. Wasn't rigged this time, funny enough. There's a bias for you. We've lost one of our guests because they are busy. And, you know, they have jobs to do. So, talk to me, guys. What have you seen?
I'll jump in.
Go for it, mate.
I actually had a hard time finding like a clip compilation, but I ended up watching a little bit of his debate with Biden.
Okay.
And you could really tell just what stood out to me most was when he wasn't speaking and Biden was speaking towards him. His thermos just almost always gave away what his internal thought processes were. He doesn't have a very good poker face.
No, that's a terrible
and then
face.
yeah, and then when he was speaking, he did a lot of asserting instead of thoughtful answering in the clips that I saw anyway.
Gotcha. Thank you, mate. Friend.
So I watched two videos and I realized that he's normally more energetic. His energy levels are higher. But in the debate with Harris, it was more like he's just there to talk and go and leave. It was nothing else. So I would question why normally he has humor, he's energetic, but while debating with Harris, he wasn't that energetic.
Interesting. And energy is a connection towards intent. But the split system, one side or the other, is, do you need energy if you've already operated under the opinion that you've won or completed whatever it is that you need to, right? It's a good question. Anyone else?
I saw a few clips, and especially his full victory speech. And I find it interesting that he's always, all the clip that I saw is speaking at the same rate, pretty much. Often you have like his rhythm, like 2-3 phrases, change side, 2-3 phrases, change side. It's like almost a rhythm, like almost a dance that he's doing. I find it interesting because we can deduce that it's part of himself, that the way he's speaking is not a fake way of speaking, because he do it all the time. Probably so used to do it that it's became his natural way to talk.
Yeah.
But I find it very interesting because when we saw, compared to Kamala Harris' speech, that she has like a lot of variance in his voice and its tone. Him is always like almost a flat line, sometimes with some peaks when you want to emphasize some words, or Donald will fix it, you will emphasize some words, but it's really a constant person. I find it really good for him, because it's rare in politics that someone is always that strong every time. And by the way, I don't really like him, but I have to give him what he have to give to Caesar what he merits. Great, and for that, I find it's probably what people like about it. It means that it's always strong. You know, when we're gonna see Trump's speech, you know what you will get, because it will be always the same.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What about you, dude?
You talking to me?
I am.
All right. So I saw quite a few clips in rapid succession. So I'm just going to give some general overview for the presentation style that Donald Trump seems to be embodying, that is a little bit different to the standard, kind of an extension off of Pascal's point. It seems like one of the big differences is that Harris's very measured and polished, whereas he gives off the impression of just wandering onto the stage and speaking freely in his more or less organic style. And so the main difference there seems to be that the slant more towards the improvisational style feels a lot more authentic to people, whereas they've had quite a lot of the almost lawyerly political posturing that she seems to bring to the table in the past, and people have stopped really trusting it. And so he is going off of sort of an honest crook type of a vibe. That's more inflammatory than I want it to be. But in terms of, I've seen clips of him as well where he said, well, here's how all of the politicians have been doing it, and here's how the businessmen have been doing it. They're crooked. I did all of those same things. I'm crooked. So it's like revealing his hand and revealing to the public almost the thing that they already kind of believe, which is that the whole system is crooked, which is where he gets away with the rhetoric as well around the whole election was rigged side of things, and as well a little bit how they were able to kind of posture out of that position when they won, which was the new rhetoric, which was that they were too big to rig. And so that's sort of the side of things as well, the kind of dynamic interplay between trying to position himself as, hey, I'm at least being upfront about how crooked I am, and the accusations that they're being crooked and they aren't even telling you about it. So I think that's sort of the shift that he positioned himself with.
Love it. Love it. It's great insights. Now, I just want to show you this before we wind up, right? There is this one, this one, this one, this. A visual representation of all of the biases we found in this short few minutes of footage. That's a lot. And if you can, the ethereal you, the royal you, is that even a thing? I know there's a royal we, but the viewer, if you can honestly say that you're actively navigating and mitigating the influence of all of those, regardless of the side that you're on, job one. We can lie to no better people than we can ourselves. Right? So if it is that you're sat here thinking, well, I've just watched a pretty long body language analysis and I didn't really learn a lot, well, then you are looking at this entire video through one of those biases, right? Because some of the entity that we've just gone through, you now have insights into authenticity on either side, regardless of whether you agree or not. Those are two separate things, right? You have insights into when somebody's controlling their growth of anxiety. Regardless of whatever topic it is that's on the table, you can compute that against what's being shown to you in the moment. There is so much between the lines that we've spoken about. It's up to you to peel it out, how it's used, bias-free, which I didn't count. I don't know, felt like more than 20, but I didn't count. It was a lot. Right? But if you can, 23, thank you. So if you can do that through the active influence of 23 cognitive biases, fair play. Fair play. You don't need to come to these classes. Right? You don't need that. But you're a 1 in a billion. Or you're a very honest person. Right? So that is our humble review of what is going on here. This will be edited because we had some technical difficulties and we appreciate you all sticking with us. And if you didn't, well, stuff you. So there you go. And until next time, the podcast will go out as normal, but this will be a special episode. And if it is that you want in on year 2 of this particular group, it's not a sales pitch, but I may as well mention it because these guys are here from it as well. I gestured to the screen that you're on, but it looks like you're on the other side. You're actually over here on the screen, but you're on this screen on my side. But if you want in, I'm going to be sending out some ads for how you can join on that very soon with some words from all of these guys about their own experience that's been unfiltered. So yeah, with that in mind, we'll love you and leave you. And we'll see you all again soon. Bye. Bye.